So today we are going to talk about relationship dynamics because whatever relationship you're in, there is a dynamic going on, and we might think we know what's going on, but these structures are happening underneath the surface, and we tend to play into those structures, and the relationship itself unfolds in certain ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's unconscious sort of ways of approaching things. And it's just that we're going about things in a particular way that we've never really questioned. And when it comes to our intimate relationship, it's just like, this is how I do it.
How did we learn it? Mostly we watch our parents and we either go, oh, they did pretty well, I'll do that, or they didn't do very well at all, so I'll do something different, or we learn it from a movie or a book or something, and it's like, okay, well, this is what I have to do in order to get what I want in this relationship. Yeah. So that's sort of what happens, isn't it?
It is, and that just sees us operating on autopilot. And whenever we're in autopilot, we're never really bringing our best self to the game.
No,
it's usually it's everything that we do, our behaviour, our thoughts, the things that we avoid, the things that we take action on, are usually driven by our own dysfunction, and we're unaware of that. So we're going to talk today about those different dynamics that exist in relationships, so that we can bring your awareness to those things, so that you can spot them, you can see the attributes of them playing out. And this is about having greater self-awareness, because we know that when we have self-awareness, then we have choice, and we can do things in a conscious way, and we can get a very different result. And in this context, we're talking about intimate relationships. And for most of us, we'd love to not only have an intimate relationship, but have one that we really love.
Yeah, absolutely. One that we don't feel like we've got this sort of outer projection, because a lot of people get about sort of going, oh, well, we look pretty good on the surface and things look hunky-dory, but then, obviously behind closed doors, things aren't as great as they could be, or in that person's head, their perception of what goes on in that relationship is tricky. And when we talk about dysfunction is basically coming out of our unconsciousness, isn't it? And our unconsciousness comes out of our childhood wounding. So when we learned as a child how to get love and affection, we thought those strategies were very useful to us at the time. And of course, if we survived our childhood, then we got to this point where we decided to try and overlay our intimate relationship with a partner with those dynamics at play. So things like our unworthiness, if we're feeling unworthy because that's what we felt as a child growing up, we'll seek somebody who's going to have us feel worthy in some sort of way. But also there's another side to the coin. There's going to be times when that unworthiness comes up anyway. And it's probably going to be, in your perception, your spouse's fault, because part of the reason of having a spouse in the first place, unconsciously, is to heal the wounds of the child, to try and have a do-over. Yeah. So, and that's where we get into these relationship dynamics that can be dysfunctional.
That's it.
Yeah.
So what's the most common relationship dynamic that, we've all experienced, and some of us hang out there all the time, and don't really know we're doing it.
Yeah, and think it's the epitome of the relationship.
Yeah.
And what it actually is the you complete me relationship, i.e. the codependent relationship. So I need you to need me and vice versa. Like we've got to need each other, and we see ourselves as being completed by the other person. Sounds totally fine, doesn't it? Because that's, if you did get your intimate relationship education from movies and books, that's what they're all based on. Because in a codependent relationship, we feel tension, we feel incomplete, and then we go and source that thing that's going to fill that incompleteness from the other person. And we love them because they oblige, and we do the same for them. But the problem being is that one day that other person might not feel like fulfilling it, or may act in a different way. And then all of a sudden, oh, he doesn't love me anymore, or, and there's a new set of tension. And then there's, the breakup and the makeup and all the things, that we go through in that process of the needs.
Yeah, that's right. And, it doesn't always stay. For some people, codependency is it. And, that relationship is founded upon that. And it's an unspoken thing. It's even an unconscious thing usually for both people. But for other people, we sort of flux in and out of different dynamics. And so when we look at the other three of the four relationship dynamics, sometimes we'll be kind of in the codependent arrangement, and then we'll move into this other arrangement,
which we'll talk about in a minute.
And so it can be quite dynamic. And this is why, if you're completely oblivious to these dynamics, then it's like, well, you just kind of leave it up to chaos and whim, and you wonder why your relationship never really gets off the ground or never really goes to the depth that you'd love it to, or why you continue to experience the same drama in your relationships that you always have, but now it's with this person and not that person, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you're coming from that orientation of, I need you to need me, then you also need to know what their needs are and how you're going to accommodate that. Or, is there something going on with them at the moment that I need to, be involved in, or, that sort of thing. And it becomes quite an energy draining situation in terms of a relationship, and certainly not the most vital form of relationship dynamic that's available. So you can feel good. It'll certainly have your ego feeling pretty good when things are rolling nicely, but is not the most stable or most enjoyable relationship dynamic you can have.
It falls way short of what an intimate relationship really can be. When it's in full flight and it's functional, and so we'll get to that as well, and what that dynamic looks like.
But before we do that, let's talk about another dysfunctional relationship dynamic, and let's talk about the aloof one, because that on the surface can also look pretty good. Yeah. But basically, as the word suggests, we have two people who not necessarily need to source energy or anything from each other necessarily. They are, for all intents and purposes, coupled. Maybe they're married, maybe they're seen as boyfriend, girlfriend, but there's almost like two parallel lives running on here. Who just happen to plan to do things together every now and again. So maybe their money is completely separated. You earn your money, you do with what you like your money, and vice versa, that sort of thing. That's a great example. Maybe in the codependent relationship, just backtracking using the money example, because how we do things, like using our money, is a good reflection. Yeah. Codependency, it's almost like, oh no, we all need to be all in on everything, Let's pool our money and we'll just make sure we all just share it.
And it's even.
Yes, in a lot of cases, it's even, it's fair, that sort of thing. There's a lot of horse trading that goes on, both monetarily and energetically in a codependent relationship. Like, I'll take the rubbish out, you do the dishes, that sort of thing as well.
You said horse trading, aka scorekeeping.
Yeah, scorekeeping. Yeah, that's right.
Can be quite unspoken as well. It's just like, oh no, we've got this agreement, we haven't spoken about it, but there is one. Yeah. And we both know where each other's up to, so that we're not getting into blame and guilt or shame and resentment and this sort of thing.
Absolutely. And heaven forbid if the scorecard gets out of whack, then there's cause for argument, right? So bringing that now to the aloof, they avoid those arguments and those energies being drained simply because they just keep everything as separate as possible. And again, they might still have agreements like, you do the rubbish, I'll do the dishes, but there's never ever a question about that. Like, it's just, that's who they are. They take on these roles as like, well, that's just what we're doing. Yeah. And we'll walk side by side in life. But the intimacy is really missing, because both of the agendas here, instead of being, I need you to need me, the agenda is, how can I conserve my energy so no one's taking it off me, including my spouse?
Yeah. There's a perceived threat that energy's kind of, it's finite, and I need to protect it because I'm not powerful, essentially, and so I can't run the risk of my partner taking that energy from me. And so we need to ensure, and the partner feels the same way in the aloof dynamic. And so we need to ensure that we just keep that, that zone of that space between us, so that we've got that flexibility to do our thing and to live our life in the knowing that our resource of energy is quite safe.
Yeah. And so sort of the things you might notice with an aloof couple might be like they don't ever really consult their spouse in terms of, you invite them to something, they go, oh, yeah, I'll come along to that. No worries. And will you be bringing your wife? It's like, oh, yeah, I'll go find out. Or something along those lines. Along those lines, it's just that real like, oh no, she'll be busy, she won't care, or whatever, and that can work, but again, it's dysfunctional. It's not that highest level relationship that's available. So
it is also another sort of facet to that dynamic is that people in the aloof relationship, it's like there's a safety in that. I'm not alone in the world, so I'm fulfilling that human need for connection because look, we're connected.
Yep.
So it's like a box has been ticked, but we're doing it very safely because my assumption that my energy's at threat is not a risk here because of the way that we've established the structure in our relationship sort of thing. So it's protective. So, yes, you're in a relationship and you're not on your own. However, it is quite an isolated experience to be in that relationship.
Yeah. So these people might feel like they're sourcing their own needs, but it's because it's coming from that dysfunctional orientation, they will actually find it quite energy draining as well.
Yeah.
Even though they're trying to protect their energy, they think it's the strategy to keep it well contained and under control. It actually has the reverse effect over time. So eventually they are going to feel more lonely, more alone, and not able to share their feelings because they haven't really, for want of a better word, earned the right to do that honestly and openly in true vulnerability. So it can be a harder row to hoe. So the third dysfunctional dynamic is the overlord, the dark overlord. And so this can look like someone who controls another person. And what's interesting about this is normally it comes from a powerless background of some sort, whether it's, obviously it would have been in their childhood because, as we said, this is where our wounding comes from when we're trying to compensate for the wound. But the dark overlord can get more dark and more overlordy if they're feeling more powerless in other areas in their life. So potentially in their job, or maybe money's tight or whatever is going on. And so that powerlessness comes up, and one of the safe ways for them to express it is with their spouse, because they feel that that person, to whatever degree, is a safe person to show their big red ugly head to,
Yeah, because that we've agreed that we're in a relationship, so that this person's not just going to leave me if I rear up my powerlessness expression in the form of being forceful, and overlordy and controlling and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I get to feel powerful as a compensation for all the powerlessness I'm feeling in other areas of my life. And I can do that at home because I'm kind of safe.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's an extreme version of this, and that can lead to, domestic violence type situations. And obviously, if you are in one of those situations, in either of the roles, the overlord or the victim, please do something about it. So it's not in any way, shape or form saying don't do anything about this. Just, have an awareness, because if you're in danger, you need to either leave or you need to seek some help so you don't hurt somebody else. Anyway, that aside, it can happen in a more subtle way, but it's still present. And so some people feel like, and you'll hear these types of words, even if out of your own mouth, I feel like I have to walk around on eggshells, or I've got to tiptoe around this, or I better not bring that particular topic up because it's going to fuel an argument, or it's going to have them on the back foot, or feeling angry or feeling sad or depressed. These sorts of manipulations are an indication of this dark overlord type of relationship going on. Now, it doesn't usually happen on the first instance. So it's usually this dynamic develops over time, because initially people get together and they stay together long enough to establish that relationship because there's infatuation. You know, maybe you like the way they look, or the way that they seduce you, or the way that they laugh and create jokes and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes once the relationship is established and the infatuation phase has it has elapsed, it's gone through, the pendulum swings to the other direction, and we start to see the cracks and the faults, and we settle into the role of either the overlord or the victim, and it actually becomes an unconscious agreement of who plays which role. Now, the other interesting thing to remember with this is that the victim is essentially getting a benefit out of this. Now, again, I'm not talking domestic violence, so don't get up in their grill about that. But what I'm talking about is if someone is sitting in the role of the victim and there's an overlord in that relationship, the payoff is things like they don't need to make decisions. Decisions are made for them. You know, their life is already controlled, and dysfunctionally, some people actually seek that out because it gives them parameters where they don't need to work out life. Life gets worked out for them. So it's definitely not a functional state of being, but actually neither are the other two types of relationship dynamics. And if we find ourselves in any of them, it's time to bring some awareness to that for ourselves and go, okay, well, what do I want to create instead of any of these three dysfunctional relationships? Yeah. So I think we've both had experiences with the overlord relationship. I think I've had an aloof relationship. I've definitely been aloof with my partner from time to time. And 100% had codependent relationships for sure, because, oh gosh, who didn't when they were a teenager at least, right? But definitely being in that. But ultimately there is a functional form of relating in an intimate relationship which just trumps everything, doesn't it? It
does, yeah. And it's good to know about, because, you know, clarity is key when it comes to creating experiences that we love. We've got to know what they are. It's like a destination. It's sort of like if you set out on a journey and you don't know your destination, how are you supposed to get there? It makes it a bit tricky, right, to say the least. So this other dynamic that exists, and by the way, each of these dynamics is equally available to us. But when we know about them, it allows us to choose, you know. And so this is the sovereign relationship.
Yeah, and sovereign functional relationship.
Yeah, yeah. And so that sees you both coming together, not needing something from each other in order to complete you. It's more a case of you're in your own sovereign nature as a human being, and they are too, and you come together in that orientation, and it means that you have a shared experience of life, and you're able to stand on your own 2 feet. You're grounded, you're centered, you're you, and they're them, and there's no need for manipulating to try and change the other person into a way that suits you better or whatever. It's like there's an acceptance of each other the way you are, and an appreciation for your unique gifts and talents and your unique ways of seeing the world and your uniqueness in the world. So sovereignty really is where it's at when looking to create the highest caliber of relationship that you can have with a person.
Absolutely. So, it's really interesting because when we're codependent, we actually try and merge each other into the same being, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're sort of trying to get the same interests and spend the time together all the time and make sure that each of us is happy with that. So we end up morphing into this one homogenous being rather than two separate beings. But if you're too separate, you become aloof. But what we're talking about is you being very aware of what is authentically true for you as a sovereign being. What do you need? Like, so for me, you can just look around my room. You can see art is important, and tending to the pot plants, and spending time with you guys. And some of the things that we do are going to cross over. and some of the things are going to be very separate. So Craig's music or his photography, that's his stuff. And so if he takes off into the bush to take some photos and then come back and spend hours editing, and that's fantastic, because that's contrast between what he does and what I do. And if I'm spending some time doing something creative on my front, I feel like I'm really satisfying my own soul tension, and he can appreciate that if he wants, and that's just a magical state of being able to come back together. Now, if we have an experience in the same space, let's say we're traveling, another unique thing is that Craig will talk about it from his perspective. I don't want to talk about you in the third person, but there you are.
Yeah.
And I get that insight from him, his way of looking at the world and his masculine energy. And I convey what I see from my side of things and what I'm appreciating about the place and space that we're in. And he gets that feminine input as well. And so between the two of us, we really enrich the experience all together. So we have similarities, we have differences, and the two are a beautiful blend. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, interestingly about that, in relation to the similarities, it's the things that our similar interests are what bring us together. It's what attracts us to each other. But our the differences is what sort of provides us with polarity, and so brings that polarity into the relationship, because otherwise you're just kind of essentially flatmates. And you're in a relationship together if it's just all about we agree on everything and we see everything the same way, then you're best buds and you're hanging out and it's fun. But there's more in terms of a richer relationship to be had, and it's the polarity that comes in through the different lenses that we see life through that really enriches the relationship as well and takes it to another level.
Absolutely. And it can only really be at its fullest level of polarity if we're both able to tap into the fullest version of what's true for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if we're trying to kowtow it down or make it less than, then it's never going to be the fullest version of polarity available, and it's never going to be the same level of coming together to appreciate as it would have been had we allowed each other and allowed ourselves to be fully expressed in this life. So so that's a really important thing, that we are two complete beings that are self-sourced. We know how to satisfy our own needs. Obviously, sometimes we get a bit down, we get a bit up, we get a bit something, and we express it with the partner, and we tend not to coach each other because it's not often well received, unsolicited coaching, unless asked for. If it's asked for, then great, bring it on. But to be able to share and to be heard and seen in that way, but that, if I express something to Craig where I'm feeling unstable or whatever, because life is life, right? We're going to experience tension and experiences, but him being there, holding that space and seeing me as a powerful person who can, basically source what I need for myself and vice versa. Or if it's obvious, we come together and we create something out of that tension together, right? That's how it works amazingly well. But if he comes along and says, oh, let me fix your problem, let me sort that out for you, or whatever, or vice versa, that's codependency. That's dysfunction. And there's a scorecard all of a sudden being drawn up, and we're all like, oh, Craig 1, Linda 0. That sort of thing. And that's not what a functional relationship should be like. It should be, we're able to express, we're able to be with our feelings, but we also know we can create a different experience for ourselves, whether our spouse is there or not, Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about this is that, say you're in a relationship now and you're like, yeah, I can relate to what you guys are saying. I can resonate with, one of these dynamics or more than one, and I can see how that plays out for us. But what do I do about it? Because there's two of us and I want to do something about it, but he or she
is not up for it.
Not up for it.
Yeah.
So, does that mean, I'm stuffed? Is that the end of the story? But it's not. We think it is because, it takes two to tango, all this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, what's really important is that you're clear on the qualities of the relationship that you would love, and you stay connected with that clarity of vision. And that alone, it sounds like that's nothing. How can that have any effect in the real world, sort of thing? But it does, because you're holding a space in those unseen forces that can move and bend to suit your will. So you're using your will by using your clarity, and you're holding the space for what you'd really love. And it may not look like what you'd really love yet, but you still, regardless, hold out for that, and there might be natural things that come up because you're clear, things for you to say, or things for you to not say, or but actions to take or not, or whatever. But things become obvious to you because you're aware of what you're going for and what you'd love to see. And there's this kind of process of embodiment over time where you're becoming that person who's living the experience of that level of relationship that you really love. And because of that, there are these forces that are coming together in support of that as a result as well.
Because you're transmitting that, aren't you?
That's right, yeah. And so sometimes that can have a very obvious effect on your partner. It's not why you're doing it. It's not some high-level manipulation technique. It's not that. But magically, it can have a positive impact with your partner and in that relationship, or it can have other effects where things just wrap up naturally and see you both moving in your natural direction, in separate directions, and creating that relationship with somebody else. God forbid, right? That's not, I'm not here to try and split my relationship up. What's this guy talking about? But it's about opening up to what's really true for you, because your heart knows what it is you love. And that may well be with the person that you're with, or it may well be with somebody else. But it's how willing are we to allow our hearts to guide us in the true direction,
Absolutely. And we'll have a video coming up soon on also everyone has a heart. So also if you see your partner as a powerful creator, a powerful heart-led person, even if they're not behaving like that in this moment, while they're, having a dummy spit or a sulk in the corner or whatever it is, but that transmission also has a very big effect on them. If you buy into their dysfunction, then you're just going to encourage more of it. Anyway, that's another topic for another day, because this is a super amazing topic, but we just wanted to introduce you to those 4 major relationship dynamics that are going on, and get you to start to ponder, what sort of relationships have you had in terms of these dynamics in the past? What have you got going on at the moment? Does it morph from one to the other? And have you started to establish that full functional relationship? Because it really is a reflection of where you're at with things. That's one of the key things we've seen over the many years we've been coaching, is that relationships are very high up on people's lists of what they would love to create, or they've got one and they want to up-level it to something that's really is magical. Yeah. And they lose sight of how they're going to do that. They start reading the books and getting the strategies and learning to manipulate and control better and communicate better and read their partner and all these sorts of things. But seriously, as Craig was saying, it comes down to the vision and what you're transmitting. And that's an inside-out job. And so as you transform your relationships, just like when you transform your wealth, we know that's happening from the inside out. It's not because some major circumstance changes. And if it is because of that, that will not be sustainable. Everything that comes from external is not long lasting, is it?
No, as a result, but when you actually transform your inner world, then your outer world starts to reflect that, and in your relationships, it's no different. You'll see your functional relationship really come together as the clearer you get within yourself about what you're going for, what you're creating, what you love, and standing for that, and no longer buying into your own dysfunctional drama patterns or loops and whatever. We'll go into more of that, down the track.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
It's a good starting point to start to gain some awareness around these dynamics.
Yeah. So if you like this video, a couple of things you can do. First of all, pop a comment down the bottom, what's going on for you, or, what did you like and what resonated with you. Subscribe, make sure that you're on the channel, because there'll be plenty more cool stuff coming through as we go. And if you want to learn how to transform your life from the inside out, including your relationships, then there's a link to our school below, and you can join and check out some of our materials there. And we'd love to see you in there, because we're doing some really great things, good classes, great people, fantastic community. It's like nothing else. So yeah, love to see you in there. Very good.
Cool.
All right. See you next time.